So a few months ago, I uploaded a video called The Perfect Halo Game, in which I talked about some of the mistakes I think have been made with this franchise over the past decade, and some ideas I think would improve the game as a whole if they were implemented properly. On that video, and many others, some people have pointed out something I never really considered, and that is that 343 have just been maintaining Halo and doing a poor job at it. The way this is worded is interesting to me, and I think it makes a great point, and that is that 343 is here to maintain Halo, the word maintain being a very key word. Since 343's taking over of the Halo franchise, they have continuously struggled to figure out what Halo is. They have not made any successful iteration of it themselves, with every new concept they put into the franchise like Sprint, Spartan abilities, monetized colors, live service, etc., always being just a cheap gimmick copied from other major franchises. Take Halo 4 for example. We got loadouts, Sprint, and lots of aim assist. All of those features ripped directly from its chief competitor at the time, Call of Duty. They even intentionally hired people who hated Halo to work on Halo in a pathetic attempt to appeal to a broader audience, all while alienating their existing audience. You see, a thing that a lot of people forget today is that Call of Duty, at least in terms of the portion of the gaming community that played it as their main game, used to be a lot bigger than it is today. And it wasn't until the days of Modern Warfare 3 that things started to change. Now, Modern Warfare 3 isn't a bad game, not at all. In fact, it's one of my favorite games from my childhood, looking back on it. But the problem was that at the time, people were getting tired of the same thing over and over again. The old joke with Call of Duty is that it was the same game and they just slapped a new name on it. You see, it had a good formula, a gameplay loop that worked, and it kept people coming back for more. And I remember playing hours and hours of Black Ops 1 or Modern Warfare 2 back in the early 2010s and really late 2000s. But eventually, after a while, no matter how good those games were, they got old. And so Call of Duty realized they needed to change up their formula a bit, and they tried, and it was kind of a disaster. Call of Duty was at this impossible point in the franchise's life cycle, with many old fans becoming bored, and this was also at a time when gaming itself was at a bit of a transitionary phase. No longer were games something that only kids played and then grew out of, but the early 2010s were a time when I think video games as a medium were kind of evolving and they were going more mainstream. And I'm not just talking about mobile games and, simple stuff like Mario Kart. I mean gaming as a whole. All games were becoming more popular and socially acceptable for people to play. So now, instead of having an audience that would only play a game for a few years, grow up into adulthood and then move on, then they'd get a fresh audience, game developers now had a new issue, but also a new opportunity on their hands. They needed to decide who to cater to more, their old, loyal fan bases who had been playing their games for years, or the younger newcomers. At the end of the day, they needed to figure out which group was more profitable or try to please both. But the end result is nobody gets what they want. After Modern Warfare 3, Call of Duty fundamentally changed. It went from a game with a very serious tone and theme to more of an arcade-style game. Neon skins, comical customizations, and a more streamlined experience. Sort of a dumbed-down highlight reel of all the best aspects of the game. However, what happened with this is the franchise lost a lot of its charm and sense of identity. Looking at games like Black Ops 3, for example, for its neon skins and robots, it was a far cry from the games of old with their grounded, gritty, sort of realistic setting and feel. Now, I'm not saying that those old games were realistic, I'm just saying that they went for much more of a realistic vibe. And sure, they had their arcadey moments, but they still tried to present something in a more serious, grounded light. This change led a lot of people to look at Call of Duty in a different way, with many feeling that the franchise was something of a joke in the mid-2010s and something that was on a harsh decline, something made for kids and not the game we knew and loved. But what does this have to do with Halo? Well, like I said before, Call of Duty being probably the most popular franchise at the time, Halo tried to follow in its footsteps. 343 saw Call of Duty and were like, we want some of that success, we want some of that money. And there's a thing, when I grew up, there was this expression, would you jump off a bridge just because someone else is doing it? And what this means with a bit of context is basically, don't do something that may be self-destructive just because it's the popular thing to do. And this is exactly what 343 did with Halo. Like I said before, COD was suffering from an aging and tired player base that wanted something new. And in a lot of players' eyes, they went in drastically the wrong direction. And as a result, Call of Duty's popularity suffered. The thing is, however, with Call of Duty, at least there was some semblance of the original game there. Like I said, it was more of a simplified highlight reel. Sure, with Black Ops 2 and then Call of Duty Ghosts, there were new guns, kill streaks, and a different era, but all the basics of what made Call of Duty were still there. There was even some new meaningful innovations in the form of the Zombies mode or Modern Warfare 3 Survival mode, both of which were received pretty well, especially Zombies. It wasn't really till Advanced Warfare that COD really started to upset people. So what was 343 doing at this time? Were they looking at Call of Duty, acknowledging the mistakes they made, and then adapting based off of that? No, they gave us Halo 4, and it's basically a carbon copy of Call of Duty. This is the best way I can actually describe it in an analogy, per se. Here we have a Lego man. Let's say our Lego man is the Halo franchise before 343. Now this is the Halo franchise after 343. Notice how well you can still sort of tell it's a Lego man. None of the colors match. The design is completely different. It has this weird cape thing going on, and it's also missing an arm that they'll sell to you later for $19.99. This is what every 343 Halo release has been to me. It's like 343 does the bare minimum of maintaining the structure of the franchise while simultaneously changing everything else about it for the worst, or in some cases straight up omitting some of the most important parts. Forge, Firefight, Theater Mode, Co-op, split-screen co-op all come to mind. This is the number one problem with Halo right now. Now, I do have to be fair and say that I think with Halo Infinite, they got it a lot more in the right direction than, say, Halo 4 and 5 in terms of gameplay, but we still have the issue that Halo hasn't evolved. Halo 3 is a fantastic game, but it's old, it's dated, it doesn't completely hold up to today. I want something new that's actually cool, something I haven't sunk 1,000 hours into, something not focused around gimmicks or cheap imitations of what every other franchise is doing. I want Halo, but I'm tired of playing what is essentially the same game with a different gimmick every release. Give us some destructible environments. Give us bigger maps, AI to fight in the multiplayer, larger vehicles. Don't just do the same things Halo 3 did and call it a day, and definitely do not copy the unsuccessful trends with advanced movement and dumbing down that Call of Duty tried. My biggest problem with Halo's latest release, beyond the store, lack of content, and bugs, is just how stale and yawn the game feels. It genuinely feels like they tried so hard to make Halo 3 with sprint and then less vehicles for some reason, and at the end of the day, it just doesn't work. There's absolutely no reason to play Halo Infinite right now over Halo 3, and I think based on the Steam charts, if you look at the player population of MCC versus Infinite on PC, I'm clearly not the only one that feels this way. There's significantly less to do, and even if there were more content in Infinite, there's still nothing different about it. It doesn't blow anyone away. It doesn't build enough on what we already have. And this is another thing I see 343 doing a lot. And that is, for some reason, they have all these ideas from previous games that they could be using, and then they just scrap them, whether it's with the story, the weapons, the vehicles, whatever. The Halo games are constantly both changing and remaining exactly the same simultaneously, and I don't even know how they do it. I've mentioned this in other videos, but I'm going to say again, where are the playable elites? Where's the brute shot, the spiker, the carbine, mauler, plasma rifle, railgun, saw, DMR, SMG, sticky detonator, and countless other weapons? What about the other vehicles? We don't have many of those in Infinite. Other elements of the sandbox, where are those? Where are grav lifts? I mean, I know there's a couple of them, but they're not really key parts of it. You look at Halo 3's Valhalla, and those grav lifts on that map, either side of the map by the towers, they were kind of key parts of the level. You even have Bungie talking about it in their video documentaries when they were developing the game, how key those were to the map. And then you have Halo Infinite's campaign, which I talked about recently. You've only got 2 or 3 different environments. Its multiplayer maps are basic and generic. What happened to the super creative maps that took place in like massive underground caves with Forerunner structures like Waterworks from Halo 2 or Gethyrophobia from Combat Evolved? Just imagine the type of game we could have instead of copying what other games do if 343 would just make their own sci-fi epic while still respecting the original game's legacy. Halo 5, for example, didn't suck because it tried something different. Halo 5 sucked because it blatantly copied the advanced movement from Call of Duty, a franchise that itself was already in hot water, as I said, because they put the advanced movement mechanics there in the first place. It's like 343 saw Call of Duty's failure and then for some reason copied it. I've been doing a lot of reading through the books recently, and I can say that Halo has such a large, interesting, and diverse lore that has tons of potential, but yet we never see any of it in the games, really at all. I was recently playing through Halo Wars as well, and some of the ideas in that game are crazy. In it, there's a level where you go through multiple layers of a shield world, fending off the Flood on a time limit where you have to rescue groups of Marines and Spartans, all while you have to evacuate everyone to safety. It's such a cool moment. Imagine if we got some kind of multiplayer mode like that or a campaign level like that in a first-person setting. It would build tension and give the story a sense of actual urgency and purpose so much better than what we see in Halo Infinite, where the whole campaign basically boils down to go here and kill these monkey guys because they're bad. They wear red, so you know they're the bad guys. Modern Halo lacks any creativity. It feels like a game made for young children with cookie-cutter enemies, very shallow writing, and a severe lack of innovation. It lacks vision, but most tragically, it lacks identity. Halo nowadays looks like any other shooter. It has nothing special about it, nothing iconic. It doesn't push any boundaries. It doesn't do anything different than other games or its previous games. The visuals don't stand out. There's no massive maps, no giant battles, no crazy moments. Something I always preferred Halo over, instead of Call of Duty in the past, was that it had larger maps with vehicle combat. I think back to playing Halo Reach and running over like 3 warthogs with the Wraith in a row and getting a quad kill or whatever. You couldn't do that. You couldn't hop into a tank in COD 4. You couldn't drive a warthog around with 2 of your buddies and capture the enemy flag as you're flipping over going through a grav lift. None of that stuff existed in Call of Duty, and it really doesn't exist much in Halo today. There were no gravity lifts or teleporters in Call of Duty, and when they are there in Halo Infinite, they're there to a very limited capacity, and they're usually in places of the map that there's no reason to use them. And it used to be fun when Halo had that. Halo Infinite feels less like a highlight reel like Call of Duty does, and more like a watered-down kiddie ride. Like I said, very few vehicles in multiplayer, an extremely limited weapons sandbox, and an over-focus, this weird hyper-focus on competitive viability. And it's all of this while not doing anything new. It's like they took the worst, most boring parts of Halo and put them together in a low-quality, buggy, microtransaction-filled package. I really don't understand this. Why is running around with just battle rifles or just assault rifles and pistols considered fun? Oh, well, it's super competitive. Yeah, but where's the fun? Where's the Scorpion tanks? Where's the Falcons? Where's everything going crazy and having warthog pileups in the middle of the map while people try to deliver the bomb to the enemy base in the last 15 seconds of the game? It's just not there anymore. For the past 10 plus years, 343 has done nothing but maintain this franchise and follow trends and gimmicks. And in reality, they've put it on life support when their job was to resuscitate it. And sadly, I think that its condition is failing, and at this point, it may be time to pull the plug. But that's going to be it for me today. If you liked this video or agreed with anything I said, leave a like on it. That helps the channel out a lot. I thank you so much for watching as always, and have a great day. Stay safe. Goodbye, guys.